Hi, this is Lyndall with Watery Wishes, and today I will be tackling a non-traditional anniversary Valentine's Day card for the Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge, which will be over by the time this is up on YouTube. I'll be using the Lawn Fawn Float My Boat stamp set and the Concordia 9th Perfectly Penned stamp set. I will also be using the Slide On Over circle die and the wavy borders die from Lawn Fawn. 2 different shades of blue watercolor wishes paper, a bit of cardstock that's coloured in red with a Copic R46 marker, and I will also be using a couple of seagull stamps out of the Life is Good stamp set from Lawn Fawn as well. I'm going to cut some lighter watercolor wishes paper down to fit an A2 size card front, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I am going to use a Slide On Over circle die to cut a window within that piece of watercolor wishes paper, as I was actually going to inlay the white ring within that die cut, but I end up not doing that. So the step of die cutting the circle in the watercolor wishes paper is not necessary if you're going to try and recreate this card. Here I'm just stamping a sailboat from the Float My Boat stamp set in Lawn Fawn Black Licorice ink. And then I'm going to die cut that off camera. I also colour around the image of one of the boats in a blue Copic marker, but it ends up being the wrong shade of blue for the watercolor wishes paper. So I actually end up using the other one that I stamped that I didn't colour around. I'm using a ruler to sort of centre that Slide On Over die, which I don't end up having to have done, as I mentioned earlier. But as you can see, it perfectly fits the card base, which is Nina 110 pound. It's a side folding portrait style card. And that's somewhat how the scene will look inside that little frame. I'm cutting that Copic coloured red cardstock into pieces to decorate the white ring from the Slide On Over dies to make it look like a life ring, and that will frame the image of the sailboat. It's a fairly easy process. You just cut 4 pieces of cardstock, smaller on one end and wider at the top, paste them on the cardinal points, and now I'm going to cut them around the inner circle, and then I round them off on the outer bits, but I don't cut them right up against the circle, as I want them out a little bit further to give them a little bit of definition. The Cutter Bee scissors are great for this sort of thing because they're so fine and sharp at the tips. I've actually cut myself on them before, stabbed myself with them. Must be careful with the Cutter Bees. But yeah, these are the perfect scissors for this type of thing because they are so fine and sharp. The longest, most tedious process in making this card was the sentiment. Because it's such a long sentiment and it's a custom sentiment, it takes a bit of planning for the text, and I actually stamped out the sentiment on some scratch copy paper. This is me pasting in the center bit. Here is where I'm actually now deciding whether I'm going to pop it up or not, and I haven't quite come to the decision that I'm just going to pop it up and not insert it. Here you can see the scratch paper that I stamped everything out on it, and this just helps to visualize your spacing when you're stamping such a large sentiment, one character at a time. And it also helps to make sure you get your spelling right, because the last thing you want to do is go through all this trouble making a card and spell a word wrong. So I actually don't show you all the stamping. This would be one really tedious card making video if I made you sit through me stamping out the entire sentiment. So I don't. The sentiment reads, "Life is as unpredictable as the sea," on the front of the card, and on the inside it reads, "But you are my anchor." And through the magic of YouTube, we've almost finished the front part of the card. And I did the same with the inside sentiment. I did that on scratch paper as well, so that I could space that out as well. Adhering the front card panel, I just have to slide that ring around so it lines up with the paper again and adhere that down. And it wasn't necessary to adhere the blue Watercolor Wishes ring down. It's just that because I'm going to pop the life ring up now, if you look at it from the sides, you'd see the white of the card base if I didn't. So it's just a little bit better aesthetically. This is 3M foam tape that I'm just cutting into strips. As I've stated before in my videos, you can use the Doris foam strips and they are perfect for this sort of thing. But I just find it easier to buy the one type of foam tape or have a big bulk of foam tape and use that rather than purchasing all different sorts of, strips and round bits and dimensionals. And I do have some low profile tape, and I do have some old, since Christmas, like foam squares that I do use, but they're really, really tiny, like tiny squares. So for bigger things, I just tend to use foam tape rather than buy 100 different things. So that's most of the outside done. Here I'm just taking an EK Success journaling pen and just putting some dots and connecting the cursive up a little bit better in some spots. And And as with the front of the card, I don't make you watch the stamping of the whole inside sentiment. I actually take the acetate that comes with the stamp set, and I've pulled out a lot of the letters that I'm going to use for this inside sentiment, so I don't have to keep going backwards and forwards and peeling them off the other sheet of acetate. They're just right in front of me. And though it does take time to stamp this out on the scratch paper, it makes the actual card making go a lot faster, because you have a visual representation of the letters, how they sort of meet up, and if you want to angle them a little bit different, you can decide that because you've got it right in front of you. I suppose you could also just handwrite it if you've got good handwriting, but I don't believe I have. But then I don't know anyone that likes their own handwriting. Stamping an anchor on the inside of the card from the Float My Boat stamp set. And then putting in a couple of dots. Now, if I was to do this card again, I probably wouldn't go crazy with the seagulls and the hearts. I think I sort of overdid it. So once I finish doing that, I actually try and give like a drop shadow glow with a white jelly roll pen to the text down the bottom on the front of the card. And you can't even see it in the videos. You can't even see it in real life, not really. Not unless you look really close. Because that Watercolor Wishes light blue paper is so light. So I probably wouldn't go nuts with all the seagulls and the hearts. Or I probably, if I was going to do them, I would do them in a blue ink, so as the sentiment still pops with that black contrast. And I think that might have been a better choice. But I didn't. This is what I did. And it's sort of growing on me. It's not horror bad. I'm just not as happy with it as I could have been. Here I am doing that drop shadow with the white gel pen. And I did off to the side on the white scratch paper that I had the sentiment on, tried a couple of different things like drop shadows with Copics and other things, and nothing really looked good, so I settled for this. And off camera, after I'd finished filming, I did go over it with a glitter pen, which did blur the ink slightly, and when the light hits it, it shimmers a little bit. And that helped, I'd say, maybe 5%. But yeah, definitely would have done the seagulls either in a different ink or not at all. And see, just watching me trace the text is tedious. Imagine if I'd have left the whole lot of stamping in. would have been an hour-long video. So that's the card, and considering I'm not too disappointed with it, it's just not my favourite, I suppose. Here are the pictures. I did have fun making this card. I had a lot of fun making this video. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit that like button. Please subscribe. And remember, have fun crafting your imagination. Bye.